And now on the show, I want to tell you about a brand new album that is coming out on March 8th. It's called Alive in San Jose. It's the brand new album from a band called None, and we thought we would actually get Nick on the phone today to chat a little bit about this amazing album, because it's got a little bit of a history to this album. It was actually the first hometown appearance of the band, despite the band kind of coming into being 8 years earlier. But we'll let Nick talk a little bit about that. Welcome to the program, Nick.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So, Nick, tell us a little bit about None as a band for a start, because a lot of people out there here in Australia, this is probably the first time they're hearing about you. So tell us a little bit about the band.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Dave. So None started originally as my solo project in 2015. I used to play in some other bands such as Plague Phalanx and Thangorodrim. And at that time, it was a little bit more of an ambient noise project. And I played acoustic guitar. It was my first time. I was 19 at the time. And I was starting to become a little bit more acquainted with the acoustic guitar as opposed to the electric. And I needed a new kind of outlet, as my other bands were, of course, black metal, death metal, a lot more straightforward. So moving forward a little bit, it evolved into a little bit more of a straightforward black metal industrial type approach, and I started having guest appearances from people from the bands that I played in, as well as some others from around here. And I started having other people play drums as well. The first recordings had both myself playing drums, and I programmed it. Today, None is a duo between myself and a bassist named Nathan, who joined a little bit earlier this year. Alive in San Jose was his first show with None. It was great to have him on board. We had the whole thing recorded in both video and audio.
So tell us a little bit about that night. Was the plan always to record everything to release as an album, or tell us a little bit about the actual night and what it was like playing in your hometown for the first time?
So it was the first time for None to play in my hometown, which was pretty interesting. Being a little bit different. So if this is your first time hearing of me, I play an acoustic guitar, and there's a lot of blast beats and black metal style type vocals. So it's a little odd, and it's interesting trying to coordinate putting shows together. I have always played live with my older bands, and I have played San Jose, of course, before, but it was finally my first time as None. And originally, I had not played live for the first few years. So it was great. I got to play for a lot of people who I otherwise never would have in other cities, because None has been playing live for a few years now, but I've always played out of state or out of city shows. So it was great. The plan was not always to record and release a live album. There's a gentleman from the area who, he wishes his true name to be anonymous, but we'll just refer to him as Portal Studios, who has been building rapport for himself as he started shooting video and recording audio for a lot of the bands around here. I saw some of his work with some of the other local bands, and I decided to hire him on for the show. For me, it was a very big deal. It was recorded on October 29th, so it was a Halloween gig. And I figured, because of what I've seen him produce of other bands, that I may want to actually give this recording the time of day and not just throw it on YouTube and make a single social media post about it and say, hey, live video on YouTube, guys. I figured, hey, I will reach back out to my PR and try to get a good release going for this, so that way people can hear it.
And this is also a little bit different to most live albums as well, because 5 of the 6 tracks haven't been released previously, so that's a little bit different as well. What was it like recording these tracks live, basically for the first time of them actually being recorded?
It is an interesting thing, considering a lot of people haven't heard it. I have seen this done before, or at least looking back on it, since I wasn't really around in the scene at that time, of course, but in the early 90s or the late 80s, Mayhem, for example, was releasing live rehearsal recordings of songs that were not yet released otherwise. So I have seen it done before. I think what's unique about this is it's all on video as well. These songs, or at least a lot of them anyway, have been recorded in demo form. So I've been able to hear it back, of course. But I'm very glad that people have been able to hear them, and mostly that people have been able to experience it live. Playing live is a much different experience, or seeing a band perform is a much different experience than hearing it on your own. Let's say if you're driving a car, or you're with your friends and you're at a party. I'm just very glad that they got to see the light of day, and the album is still coming.
So what kind of things were inspiring the tracks that we're hearing on here for the first time? Was there anything that was inspiring what you were writing at that time?
Right, so I could take Dusk Skies Over the Dreaming Forests, for example, which was track 5 on this live album. It was the first Nun song that was ever written, and originally, when I started putting this project together, as I mentioned earlier, I was 19 and I was starting to play acoustic guitar more. It came from an acoustic guitar duo with a friend of mine, and it was originally an instrumental song. It was the first song that we wrote together. After a while, once that dissipated and I decided that I wanted to continue with it, I changed the other gentleman's parts, and I just continued it, and the songs have grown over the years. So some of the songs that you listeners will hear on the album are older. They're actually some of the first Nun songs that are almost 10 years old. Now, when it comes to lyric wise, what was I thinking about? Well, Dusk Skies Over the Dreaming Forest I like to refer to as it is me, and it is the thing that I would want everybody to remember me for the most. I believe it is the anthem of my life. I have carried it since I was 19 and still have yet to really release the official recording. Yeah. There is an official recording now. It is live, but it has not seen the light of day as far as an album goes. Lyric-wise, just in general, it is me, and I believe that is what art should be, of course, is if you're a musician, if you are a painter, a sculptor, or any kind, if you are working in, let's say the field, you are a carpenter or something, your work is you. Yeah. And that is what my music is about, and what my art is about, is sharing that idea and trying to inspire other people that to really put themselves into their art and not worry about sounding like your favorite bands so much. I mean, it's great to listen to other people and to become inspired from other things because you relate to it, but you don't need to be just like them. Yeah. A lot of those people who you listen to, they stand out because they were who they were, for example. So just to quickly close that, what inspired me? Well, it's definitely general, and each song is very different, and they came from different parts of my life. But what Supreme Dedication to the Craft, the name of the album, ultimately is about is a vow to that kind of life, that this is you, this is your life's purpose, whatever it is that you've chosen, if you're a carpenter, if you're a painter, a musician, whatever, and that, you will die on this hill.
Yep.
Pretty much, yeah.
How does it make you feel when you go back over tracks that you've written like 10 years ago? Because I find I'm in my 40s now, but there's times when I go back and read lyrics and listen to songs that I wrote when I was back in high school, and I think, what was I thinking? Like, they almost seem like they were written by somebody else. How do you feel when you go back and go over songs that you wrote 10 years ago and such?
That's a great question. So the lyrics themselves have developed, and I have kept some lines, or at least reworded them in some ways. What I ask myself is, what does that song mean to me now? And what did it mean to me then? And what place in my heart do I hold that dear to me now? Or let's say. Yeah. At least that's how I would rework something that, like, let's say if I'm going to pick up a song I wrote 2 or 3 years ago because it's been shelved, let's say, because I've been working on this, then I'm going to ask myself a question like that. How does it feel? For the most part, I agree with you. I think we all feel that way because we're all growing, and it does feel like it was written by somebody else because it was written by somebody else. Every moment is both the beginning and the end. So we are different people than who we were 10 years ago. You mentioned, you're in your 40s, or let's say you're 40, when you're 30, that's a completely different experience. Yep. And I'm 29, I was 19 10 years ago. I'm way different. Yeah. Of course. But bottom line is, I'm also the same. If I was writing about something, or if my aim was to really put my mark on this, and I am still in line with that path, then, the ultimate, the spirit, the heart of it is the exact same thing.
Definitely. Now, with Nathan on board now as well, what are your hopes for the band? Like, where do you see the band heading over the next few years?
I'm glad that I finally have Nathan on board, and I have somebody who is dedicated to it full time. Everybody else has been guest appearances, guest musicians, especially with the drummers. They play in other bands, but I want None to become a full band where others are contributing as well. Now, Supreme Dedication to the Craft, the full album, is recorded by completely myself, other than drums. Now, with the albums that will follow, even though I have written a lot of those parts, I would love to hear his interpretation of it after I share it with him. Let's say I'll show him the guitar parts, I'll show him the bass parts that I had in mind, and I want him to contribute as well as drummers. And then this is going to sound crazy, but I think this is a good point to make, that I want None to become a concept, or it is a concept, but I want it to be something that other people can really take to heart as well, and that they can grow with and they can put themselves into. And I would love to see it transcend even myself, to where None could become a band with no original members, and I am the only original member. But I would hope that it is so big that it will continue and I'm not even in it. Maybe I'll be dead, and somebody will take my place.
Yeah.
But that is what I hope. That is what I hope.
Yeah.
That it will turn into a full band, into I guess a cult-like mindset, if you will. That there's a mission that they are on board, and that it resonates with all these people, and the people who I come into contact with who play in the band with me, whether it's for a shorter period of time, longer period of time, with people who I meet in real life. Let's say yourself. I'm sitting here talking to you on the radio show, and it's a lot different than just somebody listening to my music. Even if they read my lyrics and they read a written interview with me, it's much different having this kind of connection, and I hope that it really resonates, like, let's say, with yourself and other people who I meet.
Definitely. Now, if our listeners out there do like what they're about to hear, where can they go to grab a copy of Alive in San Jose, and of course the album that is following as well? Where will people be able to go to grab copies?
I'm of course going to post that all over the place online, and I don't plan on self-releasing the album. Now, let's stick with Alive in San Jose. Right now, the plan is just digital. I am releasing the video through No Clean Singing, which is a music blog from the LA area out here in California. That will be on March 8th. The video will be live on YouTube, and you can find it on all major streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, etc. Now, with the full album, pretty much same deal, but like I was saying, I am not planning on self-releasing that, so I know that they should end up in some web stores as well, of course, as live shows, if you guys are ever near me, or if I am near you.
That is amazing. So, Nick, to finish off, what would you like to say to people who are about to sit down and take a listen to None for the first time?
I really thank you all for giving it the time of day. It's not easy to get people to listen to your music. Not only being a musician and being in the sea of musicians and bands, but also just being something that's very different. Different isn't always good. You don't need to try to be unique just for the sake of being unique. It's just about being who you are. And I really hope that you find something very inspiring in it that you can relate to, really take to heart, and that it helps you in some way or strengthens you in some way.